I'm Corbett Wall with USDA Livestock and Grain Market News. Glad to be back with you here on the week ending August the 17th, which just so happens to be my 40th birthday, for your National Feeder and Stocker Cattle Market Summary, where your yearlings sold firm to $5 higher across the nation. Calves, steers and heifers fully $3 to $6 higher, with a lot of spots in a lot of places as much to $10 higher, especially on your lighter weight calves weighing under 500 pounds. And on both your calves and your yearlings, it was noted in most places that the steers saw the full advance of the market, while heifers still higher were towards the lower end of the advances there. But just this wild year here, 2012, will go down as the year that Mother Nature ran a month to 6 weeks ahead of schedule. If you remember, we had an early spring. We started getting that hot weather early in the summer that we normally wouldn't get until now. And then, of course, we had no rain in many parts of the country, but now we've got, combines running in places 6 weeks early, guys trying to salvage what they can of their corn crop. And now up in the most of the Midwest, especially the upper Midwest, we're starting to get late fall-like, or not late, but sure enough fall-like temperatures, especially at night, with overnight temperatures in Kansas City area and all up through Nebraska and Iowa down below 50 degrees overnight, which is way below normal for this time of year. But any class of cattle, it looks like it's going to be good property next calendar year. So buyers are really starting to see that in the last couple of weeks. We just maybe 3 weeks ago, a month ago, we thought that this drought was going to have the world come to an end, and there was just no bottom in this market. And then all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks, we found a lot of footing, because as we look around and we saw how many cows they've sold off in Texas, Oklahoma, especially western, southern Oklahoma last year, and in New Mexico and places, and then this year in Arkansas and Missouri and the northern parts of Oklahoma, throughout Kansas and into Nebraska and Wyoming especially, extremely dry in Wyoming, big herd sell-offs in that part of the country. We look at all that, we know that the calves are not going to be there, so pretty much any kind of cattle is going to be good property next calendar year. Now, how do we get them there if we don't have anything to feed them? Pastures are pretty much depleted almost everywhere, except for in the southeast. They've been getting good rains here for the last month or so, and in the southeastern markets have made good advances, and a lot of that due to local demand, as guys have cut hay and buying light calves to turn out late in the year. But how do we get those calves, through the fall and into the winter of next year, into that early spring, when a lot of people think that we're probably going to break the all-time records that we broke early this spring in May of 2012. But we don't have anything to graze the cattle on. Whole grains are going to be too high to feed. But then now we see this this huge mountain of silage, and I do mean it could be a mountain if we pile it up. Going to be a lot of silage to feed all over the country, not necessarily just in the Corn Belt. You can get into the lower part of the Midwest. Anywhere that they've raised some crops, there's going to be silage. A lot of guys, young guys, don't know how to put the silage up. Other guys are pulling junk and old parked trucks and things out of their silage pit because they haven't used them in so long. But there are going to be a lot of silage. They're just trying to salvage some value out of this corn crop that has pretty much just been a bust. Distillers dried grains are going to be hard to find this year, because a lot of these ethanol plants are not going to be able to put out as much as they normally do because of this extremely high grain. But the silage is going to be through the roof, and that is a big advantage for cattle, because there's lots of things you can do with a kernel of corn. There's only one thing you can really do with silage, and you can't take advantage of it until you start feeding it to cattle. You can't feed it to hogs or chickens. So cattle has an unfair advantage right there, which could give beef a better advantage on next year's grocery bill. But Loop City, Nebraska, the commission company there, had a good sale this week on Tuesday. Everything sold pretty well, but glaringly you're starting to see these light calves, which are selling early. They're unweaned right off the cow, really, sticking out as a high sale. All the 3-weight top quality steers there, they averaged 368 at 204.92. They had 120 head in the 4 to 5 weight top quality steer category there. They averaged 450 at 185.01. So these light calves are really starting to sell well. Your fat cattle this week, mostly $1 higher, sold from 120 to 122. The 120 was down in the lower part of the Texas Panhandle. The 122 was in Colorado late on Friday, but mostly 120, 21 across the major cattle feeding areas there. Mostly 190 in Nebraska on dress basis. Cattle on feed report Friday, pretty much as expected, not expected to change the market, and I would think neutral in all areas there. The on feed as of August the 1st, the inventory was exactly what they thought it would be within the 10th. At 100.7% of a year ago. We've seen some of those cattle come off of pastures and go into the feedlots, or we wouldn't have that many cattle on feed. Your placements were 90%, which was slightly less than what they thought, but your marketings were just under 100 at 99.7, which was also less than they expected, pretty much offset right there. Regional weighted averages this week. In north central states, an 800 to 900 pound steer this week cost you $137.52. Last week it was $136.85, and a year ago $135.37. Down the south central states on those calves, 5 to 6 weight steer this week cost you $148.72 compared to last week of $142.49, big advance there, and last year was $141.56. And down in the southeast, a 4 to 5 weight steer, average around 4.5. Cost you $151.48 compared to $146.72 just last week and $133.01 a year ago. That wraps up your market summary for this week. Check out our website for more market information at marketnews.usda.gov. And from the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.